Yeah.
But nobody else ever looks at a documentation like that. I mean, it's more or less useless. There are various tools for documenting a database, and basically it's a question of what kind of documentation do you actually want? What's the purpose for it? Because some documentation will help you in your programming effort or your developing effort, and some kind of documentation is more a static image of the database as it is, you know, so that you could reconstruct it if that would be necessary, or if you're handing over the project to somebody else, you might need some special documentation as well. And I must confess that some of these examples are quite database centristic. And of course, some tools have evolved around databases. I have a favorite tool here, if I can show you. It's a program called Dtf Structure Viewer. This one is in version 16.1. I think it's you can actually download a newer version of this. And what it does is you point to a workspace, a Dtf workspace, and then you basically just scan the application, and then you go to the diagram here. Now you see there's nothing, but if I choose complete diagram, I get a complete diagram for the order entry example, which was what I chose.
Yeah.
As you can see, this is a very crude example. I mean, that's not a lot of information, but the central informations are there. And what's really interesting is this one here. These are the related files in the system. What we have here and here are more or less system files. I can just take them away. Neat. And we can take those away. Neat. So these ones are interesting. The way of documenting a database like that is actually called a Bachmann diagram. And it's a very, very, very old way of doing it. The arrows point from one table to another, as you can see, and it points from the childmost table to the parent table.
So in this case, you have the order detail in the bottom, and that's because in the order detail you have a order header ID and an inventory ID that points to those tables.
Yeah.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah. So when you look from the bottom of the diagram and up, you will see child, parent, and then this again, child, parent, or this one, child, parent, child, parent relation. So the direction of the diagram sort of shows you the hierarchy of the tables, the way they are relating. Essentially, a relation like this also would mean that this is a many-to-one relation. So when you look at it, you can immediately see that the order detail table here actually constitutes a many-to-many relation between order header and inventory. You have all the relation information you need from this table here, or from this. There are not any details.
No, but sometimes the details can make it hard to actually see what's going on.
Then there's something altogether different, like this diagram here. I can zoom into it.
Yeah.
It's a database. It's called Database Buyer, I think, and it has everything. This works with SQL files.
Yeah.
And the problem with SQL files is that, as such, the relations are not stored in metadata. There are no construction that will save what relations you have in the table. They are all implicit in the views that you might make. That's where you make the relations, so to speak, while you're working with the data. The only thing you can do is that you can set up relations in the Microsoft database, which is not setting up relation, but is setting up the rules for what to check to ensure the database integrity. But it also works as metadata to draw a diagram that, like this one here.
Yeah.
But as you can also see, is that I'll zoom out a bit so we can see an overview of it. There are no hierarchy, no obvious hierarchy. I mean, this table here relates up to this one here, but also down to this one here. This was made for the documentation that was to be delivered with the commissioning of that particular project here.
Yeah.
So the customer got this diagram here, and they can look at it, and they can say, "Isn't it a nice looking diagram?" or whatever they might think, looking at things like that. But personally, I think it's of very little use because if I want to see particularly how one table relates to another one, I would probably go into the database to whether it be Databricks or Microsoft, and I would look there.
Yeah, when I'm going into an application and I need to work on something specific, I will usually figure out, okay, this revolves around the post table and the topic table and the perhaps the comment table. I usually draw these three tables on a paper, and then I can kind of get an overview of what I need to do in the application to make it work.
You know, pen and paper is also a very, very good tool.
Yeah.
I was just looking for a link you sent me some time ago.
dbdiagram.io.
Yeah, I even have it in my browser. As you can see, with the code, you know, at the left side of the screen here, it's something that you actually code, setting
Love
up.
that.
Yeah, because if you like this way it's documented, then you could actually do like Stu did, extracting the metadata and then write the code automatically.
As you said, if you have MS SQL or PHP MyAdmin where you actually can see that table is documented, what is the value of having yet another external database documentation tool?
Well, in my experience, specifically with the big one, you know, has all the details and so on, that well, the customers likes diagrams like that, and they can put it in a shelf. Yeah. You know, so now we have the database documented. So if everything or anything goes wrong, we still have the documentation here. Yeah. But nobody else ever looks at a documentation like that. I mean, it's more or less useless, in my view. I mean, it's useless. But it looks
you can
nice.
put it on the wall and it looks nice, yeah. And then you know that this is your application, but you're still gonna go down and look at the tables and use pen and paper when you need to actually write some code for a few tables.
Well, you certainly shouldn't underestimate the value of putting this one on the wall so that everybody can see how clever you are. Other than that, I'm not sure actually. I prefer the simple diagrams every time. And you know, if I get a new system, if somebody asks me to work on a new system, on another system, I mean, which has already been developed, I generate an overview of the database before I look at the code.
Yeah.
I mean, the code is probably something at the last thing that I begin to look at. Trying to find out what does this system here actually do. I mean, looking at the database is a very, very useful thing to do.
Yeah. I think we're done with the database for now.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't have anything you want to add.
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
Yeah.